I finished my Jungle Book dress for our upcoming Disney cruise, and it's so fun and comfortable. There's so much fabric there that it's taken me a while to find my pockets, but it feels like a fun vacation dress. Until I got a good look at myself and I thought, oh my word, I've made a touristy moo-moo.
Hey everybody, it's me, Margaret. I'm a Mississippi native transplanted to Atlanta, Georgia, where I sheepishly share things I love with you, and today we're sharing some sewing. I have completed my Jungle Book dress for my Disney cruise that's coming up here shortly, and I have mixed feelings about it. Alright, first of all, I used McCall's pattern 7565, and it has all these different views right here, which were great, but I was particularly drawn to this swing dress or tent dress, if you will, since I'm going on this cruise, right? And I'm thinking easy, breezy, airy, comfortable. I'm also thinking that this dress made out of a Jungle Book fabric is something I'm only going to wear when we go to Disney events. And yes, we are big Disney people. We try to hit the parks every couple of years, if not every year, and we go on a cruise, a Disney cruise, with a certain group of people every couple of years. And I'm probably not going to parade around town in my Jungle Book dress, but it would be fun to celebrate our Disney stuff with. So that's where the idea came from, and then the styling being light, breezy, and airy, okay? Well, I seem to forget that the picture on here is pictured on a 6-foot-tall, long, skinny model, and my 5'2" almost chubby self can't really carry this off. Although I'm not totally opposed to the idea, I think maybe it would have looked better in a regular shirt dress pattern. But I don't know if I dislike it enough to go to the trouble of the alteration. Does that make sense? So you can feel free to weigh in at the bottom. Remember, I welcome everybody's opinion as long as you are kind. We have to be kind to one another. There's too much ugliness out in this world. We certainly don't want to be causing pain on purpose, right? So share your opinion freely, just kindly. It's important to note that I really did follow the directions very closely, with a few exceptions. For example, this swing dress had the pockets sewn on the outside. They were the same shape as an inserted pocket, but they had one on the outside. I put mine on the inside, so as a more traditional type pocket. But other than that, I followed the instructions exactly for this. I ended up making a size 12 when I did my muslin in a size 14, and I just felt I had a little bit extra room, and I know that sounds so weird for the sizing, but my bust measures about 35, and so for a 14 the measurement was 36, but a 12 it was a 34, so I went down to the 34, and I'm glad I did. It was better. Now, these shoulders, I thought maybe should be more narrow right here. So I'm thinking about taking these in. And if I had completed my study on tissue fitting, I may have known that to begin with, but I did not tissue fit, so we'll see. The collar was one of those kind where you complete it and then you slip stitch it on the inside. So I don't like doing hand sewing, but I did do the hand sewing for that, and I think it came out pretty well. Now, the buttons were designed to go all the way to the top, to begin at the top and then go down, but Tilly of Tilly and the Buttons patterns, I was reading through one of her instruction sheets, and she makes a note to always put a button at the widest part of the bust to make sure you don't have to deal with any gapping problems. So I decided that would be a really good practice. So I started with my button here, and then I worked out evenly for the 7 buttons that were required. And let's talk about these buttons. I thought they were perfect for this dress.
I got these buttons recently at Hobby Lobby for 50% off. It was a set of 10 buttons with 2 in each of the 5 styles. I thought they looked just like they were imported straight from the jungle.
Now I will say with the completion of this pattern that I have figured out that I am no longer in the beginner category. Now I do think I'm still more along the lines of an advanced beginner, but I sometimes wondered if I was actually a ranked beginner with how confused I would get in certain aspects. But in following this pattern with the instructions, you had to be comfortable with more than your basic sewing terms. For example, this placket for the buttons, you know, they tell you you have to cut out two and interface it and whatever, but when they give you the instructions in here, they only give you the instructions for one placket, never saying and repeat with the other side. So I just kind of figured out that I had to do that. And being a former teacher, I think it's really important to write out every single step. You don't have to give the very basic details, just saying repeat on the other side is sufficient. But I do think it's important to note everything that needs to be done. And then another thing that I think is common to the large pattern companies, the big four, they tend to give you a series of maybe 4 steps, and then you get an illustration of just what it looks like when you finish doing those 4 steps. So unlike the indie patterns that I'm noticing now this time around in my sewing phase, the indie patterns are very careful to show you this is what it looks like when you pin it together and baste. Then when you turn it to the right side, they give you every little illustration, or rather photograph, which is so important, I think, to make sure you don't miss anything. So as long as you're really good at reading and following directions, the big four patterns are fine and all, but I do find that that's what causes my mistakes a lot of times, is that I read through it, think I got it, sit down and off I go, when a visual illustration or a visual cue would have actually helped solidify each of the steps in my brain, and then you have less ripping out. So just my opinion. Now, you know how you've heard many times before related to other things around the world, the right tools for the right job make the job easier, right? Well, I have found that to be true when it comes to presser feet. Now, I have the luxury, and I do think it's a luxury, of an automatic buttonholer. You have one of these big giant feet like this, and you insert the button you're going to use in the top, and that will automatically size your buttonhole. You simply choose which type of buttonhole you want from the picture on your machine, and poof, hit the button, off it goes. So that makes buttonholes so much easier. As long as you are comfortable placing your buttonholes, you know, drawing your little lines or whatever, you're set to go. However, I was going to town, everything was going great guns, and all of a sudden I was getting some messed up buttonholes. Okay, I got this 2 times. You see how it didn't finish right there? I mean, it went through the motions, but it just didn't do right, and the machine was threaded, and I don't know. So what I did was I unthreaded the machine, re-threaded it, and I also changed my machine needle, because I heard that that could also make your machine do really weird things. And as a result, I got fine. They were fine after that. Clearly needing some trimming, but yeah, so that was really strange. Now, it was a simple fix just to change my needle and rethread my machine. Not sure what went on there, but I read somewhere a long time ago that 98% of your problems could be solved by rethreading your machine. I don't know what goes on, but gosh, you know, there are kind of complicated machines if you stop and think about how they work. So cut them some slack and rethread the thing. But it did work. But what that meant was I was not comfortable going back in with my machine to repair those buttonholes. So I did have to do them by hand. I did the repair by hand. So I just fixed myself a cup of tea and put on a good show, and pretended I was on Little House on the Prairie, I guess. So that's how they had to do buttonholes back in the day, right? But it was only for 2 buttonholes. Only 2 got messed up, but so it wasn't that big of a deal. For the most part, pretty easy. So that was the first time I had used that buttonhole foot, or at least to my knowledge, to my recollection. Before, I was doing them on my old machine because I was familiar with it, and my old machine had a series of 4 steps. First of all, you had to draw your buttonhole just the right size in the right place on your fabric. And then you had to go 1. And you stepped on your pedal and it do. Then you went 2. So you had to remember to stop at the exact right spot so that your buttonhole would not be too big or too small. And so anyway, that's what I was doing. So this was the first time, even though I've had this machine for a while, that I used the automatic button holder, and I'm thinking, what was holding me back? It was wonderful, easy. And I'll have to take a picture so you can see this clearly, but this foot was another lifesaver, and I had just recently purchased it. It's called an edge joining foot, at least that's what's written on my package. I'm calling it a stitch in the ditch foot because of this little fin that runs right down the stitch, and you can easily guide where that needle is going. I mean, it literally did perfect stitching in the ditch, which is what I did along each of these plackets rather than hand sew these things on the inside. So I did try to take some footage of this with my phone while I was sewing, but you know, you're not supposed to drive and use your phone, and you aren't supposed to sew and use your phone either. So would I recommend this pattern? Yeah, I would. If you are more than just a rank beginner, and of course if the styling flatters you in one of those views. I'm still on the fence about it. I don't think that it's going to bother me enough to go through the effort of altering it and all that. And it's so dadgum comfortable that, you know, I can look like I'm in a moo-moo for one day. And it's fun. I mean, it's just a fun little dress. So, I don't know. Now, another thing that I sewed is the blue skirt that I have on today. I'm going to insert some pictures so you can see it. But basically what this was a cheap poly cotton that I had in my stash. And I pulled it out and made one of my famous little skirts that I make. This skirt is talked about at length in a separate video. I'll put a link in the description box below. This is pretty much what I wear instead of shorts most of the time in the summertime, or these little skirts. And I had this cheap poly cotton, and I had this thread that I owned for years, and I really wanted to see what I could do with that thread. And I thought, hey, that might look good as a little trim on the bottom of a skirt. But I did want to mess up some really good fabric, so I pulled out this cheap fabric to give it a go. And you know what? This little skirt's fine for running around town, grocery shopping, doing whatever I have to do. So while I normally would not have chosen, you know, this fabric, you know, I don't know why I had it, probably for some craft project or the backing on a bulletin board or something like that. But I probably would not have gravitated toward that at all in the store, but what a difference the little trim made on the bottom. So I was real pleased with that. Totally forgot to mention this last week, but a shout out to Lorelei Frank, who gave me a heads up that Simplicity patterns were on sale for 99 cents at Hobby Lobby last week. So I went and got some patterns. Now this one is obviously $12.80, and it comes with the leggings and these little tops like this. I kind of like the way this was a sort of a wrap top. I didn't get excited about those elastic sleeves, but you know, all that's changeable. So and it had leggings. Now she looks like she's wearing jeans, but these don't appear to be that type of pattern. So can you see that? But anyway, out of all the patterns I bought, this one, as I look back on it, does not stand out to me. I don't know what I was thinking. Then we have this one, which is 8061. And it's just a whole bunch of different tops, and they do call for wovens. So, you know, I'm still scared of knits. That's why I was going for these, but good basic tops. And this is a woven top, and I really like this smock look. What is this pattern? 8052. I just thought this whole thing was a nice, cool. Actually, this could be taken into fall. I really liked it. So there's that one. And this 1133, a super jiffy. It's very, only 2 pieces. And, well, it says 1 pattern piece actually each. No side seams, no zippers. And I was thinking swimsuit cover-up, but this is one of their patterns that they have reprinted. It was, you know, like the 60s, I guess that was. I don't even remember. But yeah, that's what I was thinking when I looked at it, but it certainly could be a little dress or a tunic top like this girl's wearing it. And then here's a little vintageness going on here, 1609. These simple little shift dresses that, of course, are actually more along the lines of classic. I think it's the collar and the bow that make them look very 60-ish, Mad Men-ish. And then I've had my eye on this one for quite some time. This is 8332, and it comes in the different lengths and different ways too that you could wear the top. I like this one right here. It's kind of a cross between the kimonos that are so popular and just a real casual dress, and I like that a lot. So didn't buy any fabric, but I'm armed with patterns now.
And the other day I went on a hunt for my old pattern stash, and I found it, and it was quite an interesting experience because many of the patterns that I have chosen are, some of them are still in style today. They're very classic choices, and a lot of them I recognize as in other patterns that are really popular. It's kind of weird, but we'll talk about those on another day because I have several, and I don't want to take up too much of your time for this one. But anyway, that's what's coming up for the next Sheepishly Sewing. But I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.